Ahead of that derby at Old Trafford, let's hear from both managers, starting with Michael Carrick.
First few days then as the Manchester United head coach, and how does it feel to be sat in that chair today?
Very two different roles. Sat in this chair in front of you lot, it's very different to the role in coaching. Yeah, listen, it's fantastic to be here. It's a great feeling for me to be in this position. You know, I think played different roles for this club and learned to fall in love with the club for so long, and it's a massive part of my life and has been for so long. And so I'm fully aware of the position I'm in. You know, in so many different ways. So. As well as that, I'm eager to succeed. You know, we've got a big job to do. It's an important job, and it always is here to win games and to play well and to do it in a certain way. So there's one side of it is nice to be here, but the other side of it is focus, concentration, and a real drive to improve the team and improve the results.
Hi, Michael. What does success look like then? Is it Champions League qualification? Is that what success will be?
Yeah, I think improvement. You know, I think certainly improvement, and helping improve individuals. I think a big part of what I really enjoy is improving individuals, and in the end, I think if you improve the individuals, you know, we create a better team. So certainly working with the players and improving them with that, I think. And yeah, listen, results. You know, that's what it is. There's an element of performance, there's an element of improvement, and there's an element of doing what it takes to win in certain ways, in certain occasions. So. Certainly higher up the league we finish, we want to keep pushing and finishing high up as we possibly can, and we'll see where that takes us.
Has there been any stated expectations from the leadership team?
No, not in terms of it has to be this way or that way. I think it's like I said, it's we want to be near the top of the league. We want to be top of the league. I mean, that's pretty obvious to say, but we got to take some small steps towards that, and European football obviously would be a step forward, and we got to keep pushing.
Hi Michael, I was just wondering on that point of leadership, what conversations have you had with the likes of Jason and Omar, and kind of understood some of the Glazer family might have been here yesterday, also Jim, so what have those conversations been like kind of in your role? Yeah, I've
spoke to Jason an awful lot and working closely with Jason and Omar as well, and over the last few days we spoke a lot, as you'd imagine, and yeah, the owners, the ownership group were in and around it. It was nice to see them and meet them yesterday and have a small chat with them. You know, they're taking care of business in some ways. We were able to share a few things, so wished us all the very best, and it was good to see them.
Michael, I was going to mention to you when Ruben Amorim left, one of the things that he said in his last press conference was mentioning about Gary Neville and the players, and clearly Roy Keane has immediately waded in. I know there's a personal element to that as well, so it's difficult. But in general, how do you feel about knowing that all these famous Manchester United people are going to put more pressure on you, basically? They're not putting more pressure on me. I don't feel that. You know, I think it's just part of it. You know, the role, I understand it. I understand there's plenty of opinions around, and some are positive, some are not so much. But I think in some ways, for me, in terms of you saying about putting pressure, for me, it's totally irrelevant in terms of me and how I go to work and what I focus on. I kind of know already what we want to improve on and how we want to work with the players, and I've already said about improving things, you know, and there's a lot of opinions, a lot can be said. It is the way of the world, you know. I'm not going to pay too much attention to the most of that. I think it's not for me to do that. I think for me and the players and the staff, it's a focus on how we're going to succeed, really, and that's our job, that's our responsibility, that's what our focus and our minds should be at, is doing what we can for this club. But that in particular was quite personal.
Honestly, it didn't bother me. Didn't bother me.
It's the hierarchy that you've worked with, the players you've signed, or the staff that you've had. What's been the most important factor in your longevity here in the
results? Results.
Anything else?
No. If you don't win, you are sacked. So we won a lot. That's why I'm still sitting here. But there's no other secret, no other club. But here a little bit more. They are more patient, I would say, but there is no other secret.
But then you must be grateful that you weren't winning at stages last season quite a long time, and you still got the backing from upstairs.
Yeah, that defined that club. Another club last season, I would not be here anymore. So they were patient. Maybe what we have done in the past as well, of course. So at the end, you can have 2 or 3 months bad, like it happened last season. We have 3 months not really good. I would say really poor. The rest was more than correct. But maybe another club will not be here. But it's maybe because the past was really good. The numbers and the titles and anything we have done is extraordinary. That's why still we are here.
And in your time here, United have never sort of managed to sustain a title challenge. It's been Liverpool or Arsenal. Would you have enjoyed a more intense rivalry against them on the pitch during the time?
With United? It's where it is. It's where it is. I cannot control what United have done. You know, since the day one, the opinion I have on Man United, but what happened, I don't know, because I'm not there. I was and I'm not.
Andy.
Hi, Pep. There's been reports today about Mark Gay and the club's interest in him. Can you say anything? Okay. Just generally, though, in his position, the defensive positions, how difficult are these injuries making things at the moment for you and the team?
Without John, without Ruben, without Josko, we are in the difficult situation for no one game, but a long, period. It's a difficult situation. But Ruben will be back soon. Josko no. John hopefully we'll see. So.
Okay, and obviously it's a big game coming up at Old Trafford. Are the guys who are going to play ready for the challenge of playing there?
I hope so.
Pep, when it comes to preparing for games, obviously you're always very methodical. With this being a different manager in Michael Carrick, you don't have a lot of reference points. I'm just interested, how do you prepare, and has it been quite different this week compared to other managers you faced recently?
Yeah, well, you have more info about what the opponent or the manager, the opponent does. You have to give more info to the players. When you don't have any info, don't give info to the players and focus on yourself. So this, maybe with a lineup, tomorrow you have an idea. You can have, some idea what Middlesbrough has done, or when Michael was in few games, was his first part as a manager in Man United, but it's tactics is about the players, and the players that you have United tomorrow is completely different was in Middlesbrough. So make analogy to say what are you going to do. I don't know.
And in that, is there a thrill for you still that there's some things you don't know? You solve so many problems before a game as a manager, but this one's maybe a little bit different. You have to react to whatever Michael Carrick might do.
Yeah, but I don't have a timeout after 10 minutes to tell them, guys, Michael want to do this, you know that, so we have time. So that's why when you don't have info, it's better, focus on yourself. For example, the game we played against Chelsea recently with a new manager, the first half was completely different than they play in the second half. So that's why it's question adapt and focus on yourself.
Pep, during Amorim's time at United, I think the main subject was the formation. Some people say the formation is important. Some people say the formation are just numbers. What is your stance of the formation as a concept?
What does it mean, the shape or the players?
The shape.
Yeah, when you play with 5 in the back, it doesn't work. You have to play with a 4. And when you play the 4, you have to play with a 5. That is analysis, and always afterwards. With 5, you can play extraordinarily well, and with 4, you can play extraordinarily well. But the argument is just, with the 5, you change the 4 and everything will be click, it will be fine. Oh my God, everyone will be manager, will be easy. And it's not like that. So always you can do better, whatever you do. Because the players looks like the best when the team works well, and it doesn't work when the team doesn't work well. So the ideas always are good. I never found a manager with the bad ideas. Before the game, you find a manager tell me, "Oh, my game plan is like that." I said, "Wow, yeah, well played." But after some time, it doesn't work.
Last time we were on Team Talks, Ruben Amorim is very much in charge of Manchester United, and then that all changed very quickly. Michael Carrick's at the wheel. How do Man United fans feel?
Honestly, I was just saying to Miguel before, I feel really disappointed at where the football club has gone. I'll back Michael Carrick, Steve Holland, Jonathan Woodgate coming in. I'll back anyone that's in charge of Manchester United. But I think, I've said it many times, it doesn't matter who is in charge. It is such a difficult job the outside noise from the media. People talk about Ruben playing a back three. Darren Fletcher comes in. He's a good mate of mine. I love the guy. Plays a back four. How did that work out? If you don't have the players that can fit the system a coach is trying to play, and fundamentally, the signings and the players have not been good enough for far too long now. So, you know, for me, there's not really much pressure on Michael Carrick because the expectations for Manchester United, I can't speak for every Man United fan, but the problems for me are the people above at Manchester United. It's not the players necessarily, it's not the ownership, it's not the manager, it's the ownership and the decisions that have been made. And when Ineos came in and Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox, I felt really optimistic. But now, I don't.
Well, Michael Carrick is going to be in charge, and his first game is going to be the Manchester derby. He's the 8th different manager post Sir Alex Ferguson to be taking charge of United in a Manchester derby. What a game to be starting with.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't come bigger, really, could it, maybe other than a game against Liverpool, given the rivalry. I have to say, I mean, obviously, Carrick this week beat out his old teammate Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Did they play together? They did, actually, for a season. And that apparently came down to, I suppose, as much prospects for the future as kind of current reputation. But in relation to kind of this fixture, it's hard not to feel maybe they should have just brought in Solskjaer for one game, given he actually has an incredible record against City.
Like I said to you, I'm surprised we'll get an announcement tonight. Man United probably will.
No, I mean, I do have to say, I think it makes much more sense to go with Carrick for the medium term. I mean, one of the things I heard was, obviously this is going to have no impact on the permanent successor in the summer. But they are thinking that if we get the right interim now, maybe it can be a figure close to the club who can be trained up potentially to take the job in the future. Yeah. And obviously with Solskjaer, I suppose, I mean, we know they're not going to go back there, really. That story's been done a little bit, so it would have felt a little bit of a backward step, perhaps. And that's no real comment on Solskjaer, whereas Carrick at least gives maybe, it's a different feel. And he is a bright young coach. I mean, OK, he had an encouraging stint at Middlesbrough, even if it didn't end all that encouragingly. But there's promise there. I think it's really going to be interesting to see how he does over the next few months, and starting with this game tomorrow, particularly how he sets up.
You also make a very good point about the summer, because there could potentially, especially after a World Cup, be a host of top managers available.
But the thing is, though, at this moment in time, which manager really wants to come to Manchester United? Because ideally, I'd love someone like Ancelotti, right? But in a dream world, that would be my best case scenario. But you look at this club, and I was really optimistic. I thought Ruben Amorim was going to be the man that was going to turn us around. But you need quality players. And we brought in Cunha and Buemo. I think Buemo's been a fantastic signing. But other than that, I don't think Cunha's been anywhere near the levels we expected him to be at. So Thomas Tuchel could be available after the World Cup. Mauricio Pochettino could be available. But I just think, you look at the way, this is a whole other story in itself, but Real Madrid, Xabi Alonso goes, Arbeloa goes straight in there. Manchester United are thinking on their feet, aren't they? There's no real plan in place.
Well, that's it. And I suppose one of the things, had they got Solskjaer in particular, it would have just, like, I mean, that's where they were 5-6 years ago, when obviously, as you say, Sir Jim Ratcliffe buying the kind of minority stake was supposed to signal a new future. It seems like they keep taking backward steps. Now, I've been, obviously, as a journalist, been kind of writing on this the past 2 weeks, talking to people around the club. There is an interesting one there. Like you were mentioning about Ancelotti. And like from speaking to someone at United, they were saying, as promising as they know that Amorim was as a coach, and let's not forget, like before he joined United, everyone in Europe was looking at him, from Liverpool to Barcelona. But what was put to me is, with a club like United, or of that size, you don't really know how they're going to respond until they're in the door. And now there's maybe a little bit of a feeling that for all Amorim's promise, he just maybe wasn't quite ready for a job of that magnitude, as we could see in some of the decisions. Also, one thing that has been stressed to me a lot, but only time will tell on this, is that the club feels the structure around the manager is completely different now than it was in October 2024. They feel they've got more of a structure. They've made like big appointments, and on recruitment as well. They're talking about how we won't see the effects in this for a little while yet, but they feel they've got a recruitment structure much more data-led, something like the way the best-run clubs do it in that regard.
You're giving me hope, Miguel, but I think the way that Manchester United has been run in recent years, the recruitment has been abysmal.
I do think, regardless of the structure, a club like United does actually need someone that can carry the weight of what it is. And that's why, I suppose, you are talking about coaches then like Tuchel. But if they go for Tuchel, I mean, he obviously wants to be in the World Cup till the 19th of July. That's quite late in the summer.
Yeah, fair enough. Good point. I want to go back to another point you made, which is also very interesting. What will we see in terms of setup in the Manchester derby from Carrick? What do you think he'll change immediately? What's your feeling about what he can change immediately?
Well, we know his system he likes to play, but I think fundamentally he knows the heart and desire. All Manchester United fans want to see is players given 110%. And I think, you know, you look at Manchester United this season defensively, and that's why I don't always blame Ruben for everything, because I don't think individually the players, if they look at themselves and think, have I been good enough? Nowhere near at it. The midfield hasn't been good enough, the back line hasn't been good enough, haven't been scoring goals. It does help now, and Buemo and Ahmad are going to be back. But defensively, in a back three, you've got Heaven, so inexperienced, you know, and these missed chances from Sesko. Yes, he's decent, been decent of late, been putting the ball in the back. I love this ball from Casemiro, by the way. And Sesko has to do better there. You know, I'll forgive Bruno Fernandes in this situation because 9 times out of 10, Bruno is the person that has stepped up. And I think Bruno is one of the only people at that football club that I think gets what it means to play for Manchester United, that heart. I know he divides people's opinions because they think he's annoying when he's always gone at the ref, but that's reality. Like, his stats don't lie.
Yeah.
When he's on the pitch and performs, it doesn't lie. And I think Bruno just magnifies for me what it means to play for Manchester United. So formation-wise, we know what Carrick likes to play, but I think who wants to stand up and be counted in these types of games? And we'll have to see if Michael Carrick can get a tune out of him.
Yeah, Bruno Fernandes, an interesting question about him as well, because what's his relationship with Carrick? He's been the main man in this team. He's been the creator-in-chief across Europe's major leagues, in fact. Will he still have that role to play?
Well, I mean, it has been raised how in Carrick's brief spell as a caretaker before, he didn't necessarily use Bruno essentially as would have been anticipated. And now there's another layer to that because, I mean, Bruno himself has spoken about this. The club wanted to sell him in the summer. I mean, we know about the issues in midfield. They do need to sign midfielders. I suppose the sale of Bruno would have funded another signing like maybe Baliba. And instead they've had to use him in the centre, which maybe doesn't necessarily suit him. And the talk is, that Amorim actually was key in keeping Bruno because of their relationship and because Bruno himself was considering it. So now things have changed, and it's hard not to feel we're getting to a situation where, yeah, Bruno could well leave this summer, which is a pity because
me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely. I mean, we're talking about, you know, the weight of Manchester United and individuals who can carry that, and I think that is whatever people say about Bruno and his attitude and all that. He gets that.
I mean, the BT we just ran there. Look at the quality. That assist against Liverpool. Like, I don't think people talk enough about his quality. You know, when he wasn't available, and also the fact that he's always available. In the 6 years he's been, I think he's missed 3 games.
And have they won without him?
No, exactly. So, you know, he's got the quality, and I'll be really disappointed. I know a lot of people are saying, like Miguel just said, like, sell him and get more players in. But to me, Bruno Fernandes epitomises what it means.
What does this mean for City, though? They'll be looking at everything that's happening around United, all these discussions going into this game tomorrow at lunchtime. What are they thinking? Are they thinking United are there for the taking?
Yeah.
Or would there be a worry about a new manager bounce?
I don't think they will. It's Pep Guardiola, it's Manchester City. Normal, you know, everything resumes as normal, I think, for City. The quality shines through.
Yeah.
And I think it won't be, what's Michael Carrick going to do? The quality at Manchester City is on a completely different level to Manchester United.
Well, I mean, the classic case with City as well, in that pretty much in every fixture involving Pep Guardiola as manager, bar recently the game against Arsenal in September, it's very much City that dictate how the game goes. They impose their approach on the game. OK, Guardiola will make more kind of specific in-system tweaks to what the opposition do, but they impose their game. And that's been the kind of the recent history of the Manchester United, or the Manchester Derby as well, that United respond to what City do. It has occasionally worked quite well for them.
At the Etihad, right?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
Old Trafford.
Yeah, yeah. But I suppose this thing with Carrick might have his own preferred approach, but tomorrow he just has to tailor that for what City do. And you do wonder whether it'll be that sort of classic game, keep it tight, try and hit them on the counter-attack.
We've already talked about City potential incoming in terms of Mark Gahey, which will obviously come too late for this game if it does go through. But Antoine Semenyo already through the door, already making an impact.
Yeah, and this is what happens at Manchester City, because I think players come into a team that isn't toxic. You know, they come, and there's not many players that come through that door at City and fail, are there? I mean, Jack Grealish, people could say maybe he failed, but for me, he didn't. He won the treble. Might not have got the best out of him. You know, but you look at Calvin Phillips as well, come through that door, but it doesn't happen very often, does it? So I think Shirky's been a fantastic signing. Haaland hasn't scored in a number of games now, and I have a feeling that he's the type of player that people question, does he score in the big games? Like, Haaland's one of the best, if not the best, centre-forward in the world. So I am worried for tomorrow, but I'm also more worried about the Arsenal game next week, to be honest. Carrick's got a really difficult task ahead of him, but I think Manchester United fans, you know, there's not massive expectation. You know, if he loses tomorrow, even 4 or 5-0, and loses against Arsenal. I think that's the expectation anyway.
Manchester City's defence, we've talked about potential incomings. That's because they actually have those 2 injuries, big ones, and they've had to recall Elaine. Is that their weakness still, do you think?
There has been a strange vulnerability about them. I mean, look, it does feel like their season has gone through a few different stages. They started a little bit indifferently, then Haaland hit form. Then it was like Haaland was basically just propelling them. And like no matter what else was happening on the pitch, Haaland was scoring and they're getting through it. Now the goals have eased off a bit from Haaland, as you say. He's been on this run, and it has exposed a few kind of tactical deficiencies in the side. Also, they've had injuries as well, to be fair. But I mean, the thing with this City is it's largely a new team. And as we know from how Guardiola works, and it's something he hasn't really had to adapt to since his first season at City in 16-17, that it takes a while for a new group of players to, because what he does is so sophisticated, it's so complex, it takes a new team a bit of time to internalise what he wants, and that can leave gaps. I think that's what we're seeing right now, especially with Rodri, not post-injury, not yet having been what we know he can do. So, I mean, that is, I suppose, offers a bit of hope for Manchester United as well, in that this City, where they are right now, as good as they can be, there are still vulnerabilities there. There are gaps you can get at.
Well,
looking forward to that one. Welcome back to Premier League Friday. The weekend kicks off with the Manchester derby, and it'll be the first match of yet another new era for United. Michael Carrick is in charge until the end of the season. He's been speaking to Patrick Davison about trying to lift the gloom at the club he played for nearly 500 times.
The feeling of being here is something that's very difficult to describe, and it gives me a lot of kind of good feelings to have that again. But because we felt it, and I know that side of things I can cope with. I know it, I get it, and I understand what goes on in the whirlwinds and what comes on from the outside. That's fine, that's normal, that doesn't bother me one bit. If you don't want the expectations, then this is not the club to be at, whether in any role. It's just not. And if you're not willing to deal with that, then that's how it is. And you can't be surprised by it, or you can't think there's elements that are wrong. It just is what it is, you know. And you got to embrace it as why everyone's interested in you. And a lot of people don't want you to succeed. All right, that's fine. Because when the club's pushing to be on top, it's a dangerous club to play against, and it's a dangerous team to play against, and that's where we need to be.
Do you see a club that's heading in the right direction?
Yeah, of course. From my point of view, I say there's so many good things, you know, and there's a lot of change, you know. There's been a lot of change. There's things to improve. Sometimes you make little mistakes along the way, or sometimes you make bigger mistakes, and you learn from it, and we all do that. And as a club, that's part of it.
Are you looking short term? Have you got one eye on the long term as well? Is it a case of get to the end and review it, or no, this will end in May?
The way I see it is, I have to do the right thing for whatever happens next, whether that's me or not, I don't know. So what I'm kind of saying is I'm not making decisions just to get by week and get to the end of the season. We got to do it so it impacts the next season and going on to the next season. So that's my total focus, and that's a responsibility I feel.
But that kind of thinking would affect the January transfer window as well, wouldn't it? You don't want a stopgap. If it's a sign-in, it needs to be right longer term.
Yeah, and of course that's always getting the balance right between what shorter term, how can we make a difference, and obviously longer term, that the shorter term doesn't impact the longer term in a negative way. So I think in terms of improvement, we always want to improve in different ways, but that's almost a different type of decision to be made. But all I can say is that any decision I'll make, I wouldn't do it purely on short term. I think too much respect and understanding what the club means, and my responsibility within that it's about making it better for the long term.
So he's looking for the long term there. For more on Michael Carrick, we can speak live to someone who knows him better than most journalists, Henry Winter. Henry, hello, mate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, guys.
Look, you know Michael so well. You wrote his autobiography. I mean, did you always think he was destined to be a Premier League manager?
I thought he was destined to be a Manchester United manager, even albeit in the short term. Once he's got sort of 17 games, and he did the interim caretaker before, 2 wins and a draw. I remember one of the first things I said to him, I said, what's it like to play for Manchester United? And he looked at me and said, I don't just play for Manchester United, I live for them. So I think anyone who is sort of doubting how committed he is to the club, even before sort of stepping back into the breach for Manchester United as they search their longer term manager, should think again. He's passionate about them, and in a way, he's what they need. Well, apart from his midfield skills, they could do with those, even I think 44. But just his passion, his understanding of what it is to play for Manchester United. I mean, played I think 7 times with Michael Carrick for England. He knows what a sort of dedicated professional he is, and when you stir Manchester United into Michael's blood, I think you get an even better player.
Henry, I'm just going to touch on Michael as a person, and we both know him and know that he's a no-nonsense guy. He's very straightforward in his beliefs and how things should be and shouldn't be, and that's kind of what you have as a Manchester United player. But as a manager, there needs to be an ego in there, I think, more so than ever. And I was just wondering whether you think that is something that might be missing in him, or do you think that can be there for him?
I mean, it's a really good point, because he doesn't really have an ego. I mean, you saw in his press conference today, he didn't want to make it about him. He was very clever in the way that he sidestepped, a little bit like he did with the ball. He sidestepped some of the questions coming in, about Keane, about the Glazers. He handled those well. He doesn't want to make it about him. But in a way, we've seen with the sort of general trend in management, it's not about sort of big ego, big beast managers, to use a Jamie Carragher phrase. It's more about those with the people skills, with the understanding of what players are like. It's basically, management now is as much about man management, because they leave recruitment to other people. And you think what Michael Carrick has been through in his career, I don't think you cross paths with him at West Ham, but when he started out, he had to uproot from home, live with a bunch of Aussies, go out on loan, all the things that sort of players do. But he went through depression after the 2009 Champions League final. Part of it was just trying to live with Lionel Messi on the pitch, and he only told 4 people about that: Lisa, his wife, his parents, and his brother Graham. He's quite sort of private. I think he uses the word reserved to think about himself, but he will have those people skills to deal with players, the younger players, the academy kids coming through. But most importantly, he's got Manchester United in his DNA, and everyone's been talking about that.
Yeah, Henry, you touched on very quickly about, in his first press conference, he was sidestepping certain questions. I remember when Ruben Amorim first came in, and I think he said in his first day at Manchester United was more interviews than he'd ever had to do in his whole managerial career thus far. Do you think Michael Carrick has got that in him to be able to handle that side of the job? Obviously you say that he doesn't want it to be about him, but along with a job like that, obviously questions will get answered, and you will have to go through those moments.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way he handled it today was typical Michael, and Ruben Amorim maybe should have had a chat with him in terms of don't get too emotional, because as Michael was saying to Pat, everything about Manchester United, the kitman has a day off with flu and it's front page news. That's Manchester United, huge interest in Manchester United. I think he gets that, but he will play it down because that's Michael's character.
Yeah, and I guess, if getting at that Champions League spot, that will be the aim for him. I know he played it down a little bit, but that will be the aim. If he does reach that, are we in a situation where Manchester United and the board may look at him and go, is this our permanent solution?
It's a really good question, because actually, if he gets them in the Champions League, he makes Manchester United as a job even more attractive to the sort of the elite managers who we know are going to become available in the summer, in the World Cup summer, and with Glasner's contract coming up for he's leaving, isn't he? So there will be people around. So absolutely, he does make it. But one thing I do find extraordinary is this suggestion that just because he's because he's polite and because he was clearly listening to Pat's questions and the questions in the press conference, that he's not tough enough. He's really tough. I mean, you don't take a penalty in a Champions League final and pretty much volunteer to take one without having a certain toughness. So just because he's polite, don't underestimate his resilience.
Fantastic. Henry, thank you so much for chatting to us today, and we'll speak soon.
Pleasure, guys.
Welcome back to Premier League Friday. We're covering Arsenal in just a moment. But before that, delighted to say former Man United midfielder Quinton Fortune has joined Rob and I in the studio ahead of Michael Carrick's first game in charge. Quinton, quite the baptism of fire, but let's look at for the next 6 months. Do you think Michael is the correct man for the job?
Well, if you could get Ancelotti, but he's not available. But the next best thing is Michael. I mean, there was Fletch there. There was talks about Roy Keane would be another great option. But Michael is there, and he's got the experience. He's been at Middlesbrough. He understands the club. He's played there. He understands what is required to be a Manchester United player. And it's not just about winning games. You've got to win in certain style of play and calm character. I know Michael from a distance, and temperament good. He'll bring a calmness and energy in the change room, and the players will have a lot of respect for him. They've worked with him before, and I wish Michael all the best because he's a great guy.
Yeah. How important is it though? This whole thing around Man United DNA. United's DNA has been a hot topic over the course, I guess, of the season. Michael will know that.
Oh, yes.
And how important is that to kind of transfer that to those current set of players?
Very important. The very core, and I've been very fortunate to play there, the very core of Manchester United is about humility. When you look at Michael, he is the most humble person you can find. He doesn't want to be in the limelight, and rightly so, because it's about the team, it's about the club.
Yeah.
And Michael will go in there and he mentioned that he's trying to improve the players individually as a team, the work ethic. I mentioned humility. No team should outrun or outfight Manchester United. That's the DNA. And of course, you have talented players. That should be a given. Tomorrow, you expect the Manchester United team to go make it difficult for City, run, fight. But then you've got the quality as well. And play as a team, selflessness. Selflessness was the most important thing. You were playing for the team. You forget about yourself. And those are values of being a Manchester United player.
That's the first time I've ever heard those values actually said. Do you know what I mean, Rob? You get so much about that United DNA, but that selflessness and humility is the word that you.
And that's Sir Alex in grind that installed it into us every single season. You win the Premier League, great, you celebrate. You come back the next season, and it's completely forgotten about.
Yeah.
And it was relentless every single day, and that was driven by Roy Keane, Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, the class of 92, and of course the main leader was in front, Roy Keane. So these are important things that was unspoken word, but you felt it every single day in training.
I'm interested then, you mentioned Gary Neville there. He had his criteria of what the next Man United manager must have. So he said Premier League experience, success in Europe, handle players and media, and understand the DNA. So is he right there? Is that the criteria?
Because it's such a big club, and Rob, you understand, it's Manchester United. You can't just go and put... you have to do your homework in terms of, like you mentioned, you walk into a change room, players have won Champions League, players have won World Cup, so you need a manager that understands and can deal with that. And I agree a little bit with Gary in terms of the criteria and the risk in terms of hiring the next Manchester United manager. But then you have to go really to the top. Ancelotti, your Tuchel,
the ones that have been at those top
clubs. Luis Enrique. I mean, you talk about Zidane. Zidane won 3 Champions League at Real Madrid, and can walk in the change room with big players, and you need that. But also, very important, someone must understand the DNA or the history or the culture of the club. It's the certain way of playing and a certain way of behaving as a Manchester United manager and as a player.
I'm intrigued just on one other thing that Gary says there, which is about understanding the media. We spoke to Henry Winter about how can Michael deal with that. I'm wondering, as a player, like when you sign for Manchester United, and all of a sudden you're wearing that badge, does your whole how you interact with the media, does that change? Do you feel like it needs to change?
No, not really, because the time we were playing, that was taken care of. Now the players are in front of it. There, the time the boss used to just handle the media, but it's important that yourself as an individual, you make sure you do your job as a player. But of course, it comes with so much pressure. But pressure has a purpose, and how you cope with that, that's down to the individual. But when you sign for Manchester United, you've got to be able to choose to deal with that.
Yeah.
Some players now look at the media all the time, and it kind of affects the way they play, but you can choose not to look at it. But when you play for Manchester United, you've got to be able to deal with that part of it.
For sure. Rob, first game, easy one. City.
Back to
yeah. Do you think that's a free hit for him, or like, how's he going to view this game?
I think he'll have a clear plan. He'll go about it in a no-nonsense way that we're talking with Henry about it, and just keep it so simple for them in that first game. And Quintin, you're right, talking about the DNA and the stuff that he needs to install to these Manchester United players to get the performance levels up is for the future. This is something else now. This is keep the messages simple, keep it clear. And I worked with him watching Manchester City, and to watch him pick apart their game plan was fascinating. And he just sat there and he went, well, they're trying to do this. They're trying to overload the midfield to do this, do this, do this. And he understood within minutes of the game starting. And you're like, OK, I get you're working at a different level tactically to everyone else on the pitch or something. He understood that. He'll see that and just try and relay that as an understanding to the players that they can understand, and then they can go and play on the pitch.